Have you ever tried to talk to somebody and then realize that they don't speak the same language as you? It can be really, really hard. It can be really frustrating. You can't communicate what's on your mind, and I'm sure it's just as frustrating for the person on the other side. Well, that problem, it's been around for a long, long time. And after Noah's story, the Bible jumps ahead to a really interesting story that points us as to maybe why that's the case. The whole world had only one language, and everyone spoke it. They moved to the east and found a broad valley in Babylon. There they made their home. They said to one another, "Come on, let's make bricks and bake them well." They used bricks instead of stones. They used tar to hold the bricks together. Then they said, "Come on, let's build a city for ourselves. Let's build a tower that reaches to the sky. We'll make a name for ourselves. Then we won't be scattered over the whole earth." But the Lord came down to see the city and the tower the people were building. He said, "All these people are united and speak the same language. That's why they can do all this. Now they will be able to do anything they plan. Come on, let's go down and mix up their language. Then they will not be able to understand one another." So the Lord scattered them from there over the whole earth, and they stopped building the city. There the Lord mixed up the language of the whole world. That's why the city was called Babel. From there the Lord scattered them over the whole earth. So before this incident, everybody spoke the same language. It says so right there. But also if we think about it, Noah and his family, they would have all spoken the same language, right? And after the flood, that would have been the only language around. That is, until this Tower of Babel incident. After this, God scattered the people and confused the languages. So there we have it. That's that. That's why we have a hard time talking to people in other countries. And all of that's true. But if we walk away from this story thinking that the whole reason this story's in there is so that we can know why people speak different languages, we've missed the point. I think there's something bigger going on, something more meaningful, and something that points us to Jesus. We need to hear what it is that the people said at the beginning of the story. As they're getting ready to build the tower, they said what? They said, "Come, let's make a great name for who? For ourselves." That's the motivation. That's the why behind building the tower. And it's easy for us to miss this because people tell stories differently today than they did 3,000 or 4,000 years ago. If we were to tell the story today, I'm sure we'd put a whole lot more thought into how we explain the motivation and the emotions behind it, maybe some more dialogue. But people told stories differently back then than they do today. So we need to try to hear it a little bit more like people did at the beginning and catch those really easy to miss bits. But that really is the key. The motivation behind the project, the why of what they were doing. You see, the people wanted to make a great name for themselves. They wanted other people to see how awesome they were. They didn't want to make a great name for God who had been taking care of them and providing for them. I think there's something else going on here too. Ever since the garden, heaven and earth have been separated. People and God don't walk together anymore. And it's a little bit subtle in this, but I think the people are trying to get back to heaven with this tower. It is quite literally a tower that reaches to the heavens. And that's what God's problem with it was. God saw that the people were going to try to do all of it themselves, bring heaven and earth back together. The people were going to try to get the fame and the glory for themselves. They were going to try to be God instead of letting God be God. It was like the garden all over again. Remember Adam and Eve ate the fruit because the serpent told them that they would be like God? It's a problem as old as time itself. They all struggled with it, and frankly, we all struggle with it too. A lot of times when things are going well, we look around and go, "Hey, yeah, look at what a good job I've done." What about when things aren't going well? We try to figure it out on our own, or we worry about it, instead of asking God for help or trusting that He'll take care of it. All too often we worry about what people will think about us instead of what people will think about God. This is a problem that's been around forever. That's the problem that led to the people building the tower. That's the problem that led to God scattering the people. Heaven and earth weren't going to get brought back together by a tower. Heaven and earth weren't going to get brought back together by people working really, really hard. No, God was going to do it. And instead of earth going up to heaven, we'll see later that heaven was going to come down to earth. But that's for a later story in the Bible.